Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I'm your host, Stephen Stark, and joining me this week, John and Nessie are back. Missed you guys last week, but you
I
know
was
we
wonder, I was wondering why it's felt like it's been so long,
that's why
and
because
and
neither
that's
one of you
why.
were here last week.
Yeah.
But we're back at it with some more Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Thoughts off
Who's?
the.
Where's that noise coming from? Are you guys getting that?
I don't hear it.
Sounds like some static. Oh, Nessie, it's you. Did something just sort of, okay? Sorry.
It's so weird to watch her like step into the people.
Anyway, I hope you're all doing good today.
I'm doing pretty well, all things being equal. So let's get into it. Nessie, off the top of your head, how'd you feel about season 6?
Well, one thing I liked was the very tight storytelling that they did. They had not as many episodes as a usual season, but man, did they nail some story arcs. So even though we got fewer episodes, they were all jam packed. Great character progression. I'm just like they really did do a good job on season 6.
Yeah, it's funny. I just wanted to say that, by the standards that like the show had set for season length, this was short at the time, and of course it was because this, there were meant to be more episodes for season 6, but this is when the show got canceled. But by today's standards, it makes perfect sense for it to be a 13 episode season, and actually
Right.
it paves the way for season 7, which is 12 episodes. I think actually in retrospect it works quite well.
Yeah, I think it. My sort of top-down view is that it was a really good season. Now, it had the single worst scene that that has been in any season yet, in one man's opinion, but all in all, it was actually really tight. Like you said, really focused storytelling. There were things that I missed. I missed Ahsoka. I missed having more Rex. But what they gave us was more or less what I wanted. I just wanted more other things too.
I'm just cracking up because I'm trying to think of what you could be alluding to. The single worst scene I'm thinking that tops Zero the Hutt and Sliced Noodles. I mean,
it's a related type of scene. Like, okay, I'll just say it. I spent the first part of that 2-part episode going, please don't give Jar Jar a love interest. Please don't.
Why? Why doesn't Jar Jar deserve a love interest?
Look, I don't want to get into it, but like, I got physically ill at the thought of Jar Jar sexy times, and I'm just like, oh my god, why?
That's not fair. I don't think that's fair.
You don't have to think it's fair.
He's a good soul. I've always loved Jar Jar, and why shouldn't he get some romance?
Apparently Phil agrees with you, and to some extent so does Sean. But like, I can't help it. I'm just like, please, no, I do not want this. But they gave it to me anyway.
Yeah, but you got some really killer stuff to make up for it in this season. I forgot like how good some of season 6 is, especially with I have to mention obviously the Yoda arc, but also I really enjoyed the arc that starts the season off with Fives, poor Fives.
Yeah, which is kind of the continuation of the arc we got last season.
and really truly heartbreaking by the end of it too. Like,
oh god, yeah.
But like how necessary for the story they're telling, because this is the order of like the looming shadow of Order 66.
Yeah. You're thinking like, you know, but for this thing or this thing, you know, they could have avoided it, but nobody, you know, nobody listens.
Well, and I think one of the big things about this season is that, like, Anakin could really figure some stuff out if he let go of some of his blind spots emotionally. You know, the thing, you know, in the episodes with Clovis, he's so blinded by his hatred of him because of Padme to actually listen to what he's saying at the end there. And then with Fives, like, he's not going to hear anything negative about Palpatine because that's like his father figure. So he looks at him like, you know, you're talking crazy. And it's just, you know, it's these stories where you're like, just one thing different happens. You know, they could really.
And this is a part of the story where we see, like, Anakin goes through changes, and we're starting to see that darkest part of him really come to the surface in this season. As you say, with his reaction to Clovis, especially that whole storyline.
He wore his jealousy on his sleeve.
Well, and not just that, but like, not just towards Clovis, but also towards being possessive of Padme. Like the way he said, "I forbid you to do that," and she's like, "What? You forbid me? Check yourself." But
it's like, no, Anakin, no. It's funny because I feel like I haven't watched this season in a while. Well, I mean, I haven't. It's been a spell since I've gone through the whole show. So, but it really took me off guard. Like, how the word you used is absolutely right on, Stephen. Possessive, and it's you know, definitely foreshadowing what we're going to see, like at the tail end of Revenge of the Sith, when you know, when he's appealing to her, but then he gets, you know, like this is, you know, when he gets threatened by Obi-Wan coming down the ramp and stuff like that, he's just gives into that jealousy and that possessiveness so easily the further along we get in the story. And and it's heartbreaking to see, you know, because especially in Clone Wars, he's such a, you know, we love Anakin, you know, he's a heroic character. So to see him sliding down this path, it's not pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason that the Jedi tried to limit their connectedness, their emotional connectedness. But I think that is both, it creates and solves the problem, you know. Part of the difficulty for Anakin is the fact that he has to hide it because he's not allowed.
Yeah.
Right.
So if he was allowed, it might not lead to this same sort of toxic, dysfunctional relationship that it eventually leads to. But because he has to hide it, it becomes poisoned from the inside.
Well, I mean, look at what, you know, the Jedi do not have the proper, you know, idea of how, you know, relationships should be handled. I mean, look at what Yoda says to him in Revenge of the Sith. You know, learn to let go of everything you fear to lose. That's dreadful. You know,
it's a tough step to take.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. Now
on a philosophical level, I can understand it, but like as internalizing that message, it's very difficult. I know, like, I am not an expert on world religions or anything like that, or spirituality. I'm not very spiritual myself, but like from Avatar: The Last Airbender, the last step Aang has to go through to unlock his final chakra is to let go of what he loves, which is like the final step on the path to spiritual enlightenment, something he ultimately decides he cannot do in the moment. And one of the other characters, Uncle Iroh, who is considered by many people to be like one of the best sort of like wise, caring type of characters ever.
And also a lot of people's comfort character.
A lot of people's comfort character has popped up in our Slack group yesterday. But he sort of says, I think there's wisdom in choosing love over enlightenment. So Iroh wouldn't have made a great Jedi for the same reason, because he does care deeply for specific people. He has attachment. And maybe that's why the Jedi, they're seeking greater power or more focus of that power. It's like the Jedi can become more powerful by not giving up that part of themselves, because let's face it, his fall as a Jedi came from his attachment. But again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I really love that they have taken the time to let that nuance play out in what is ostensibly a kid's show.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the problem with attachments was when he was, we had the loss of his mother, and he didn't know how to handle it. There are ways of dealing with grief that are positive, so that you don't have these negative outcomes. So, I mean, attachments are fine, just you need to have the mental well-being to deal with them. Having the tools to deal with them would be a whole lot easier, I think, for the Jedi Order than just saying no, just don't have them. Easier to deal with that way, because it's human nature to make connections with other people.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
a lot of them aren't humans, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
humans are social.
And I mean, after all, the way the story progresses, we have the advantage of knowing what lies ahead for the story. Future generations of Jedi are not really going to care so much about that part, because it's kind of,
well, it's kind of a moot point when you're the only one.
Yeah. But I don't necessarily see, like if we move forward all the way to the sequel trilogy, I don't see Rey necessarily, feeling the need to worry about that.
Right.
And we don't know what Luke was up to for some of the years. We know he was on the island for a few years. But
I think the rule books got burned up in the tree. So
no, they didn't.
I know they didn't.
With her, Rey took those with her at the end of whatever movie that is.
Yoda burnt.
No. She took the books out.
The tree burns, but she took the books first.
Well, even Yoda calls it a pile of old books. So he's like, we really need to let go of that stuff.
Yeah, Yoda's like, I mean, rules are constructs. Rules are what you want.
Well, and again, I think the Jedi have a good idea and good ideals. They want peace and prosperity throughout the galaxy, but the rules that they enforce on themselves and how dogmatic they've come after thousands of years of existence has led them to be in a place where they aren't doing what they aren't living their ideals anymore.
And Yoda says, that goes to what Yoda says at the end of the season, where he says, in fighting the battles already lost, we have, they've, so they're not, living up to their own ideals. They've gone ahead and engaged in war,
They're generals in that war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of a odd seat for peacekeepers. And Sidious laid the trap well and baited it and led them down the path. So
yeah, and there's another element of this season which I loved when I first saw the I think it's the first episode of the Yoda arc where they discover that Dooku was behind the creation of the clone army, and what this does so brilliantly is it puts a ticking clock on everything. All they can do is hope to win before whatever whatever purpose there was behind that comes to fruition. It's basically just trying to end things as quickly as possible, and to come out the winners as quickly as they can. And it just adds, like, if you looked at that scene in Revenge of the Sith, when Order 66 is happening, and Yoda's heartbreak and his realization, and probably why he can respond so quickly and save his own life, it's like they lost. They didn't get to the finish line, and it just adds so much urgency to everything. And to take a step back and sort of look at this season and where it sits in sort of now that we have a 7-season show. It's funny because I remember, this was a point of contention with us where I was arguing that maybe we should, go through these shows as
they were released.
As they were released. However, what I didn't anticipate going back to watch season 6 was how wonderfully this season tees up the final run of episodes. There is such a sense of, couple characters even say it, we're coming to the end now. It's feeling like we're building up to the showdown. And so actually now I can't imagine doing that to you guys. It's like, it's all.
That was a question that I was having as I was watching this season. I was like, okay, what next? Do we do Rebels? Or do we go straight to season 7 and then Bad Batch and then go back to Rebels?
No. Well, here's the thing: you can't do Bad Batch yet. It's gonna have to.
Yeah. I wasn't.
You don't tell me what I can do, John. You're not the boss of me.
I'm saying this based on what I've seen of Bad Batch so far, and certain things that are in Bad Batch. I'm saying you're gonna want to watch Rebels before you do that.
Well, then the question becomes: do we do season 7 next, or do we do all of Rebels then season 7? I'm kind of in favor of finishing up this story before starting a new one.
Because for one thing, like I just said, it really feels like, and now being able to take the whole thing, and it does feel like this season, like, just sets you up for, we're nearing the end. This is it. We're coming to the showdown, so it feels right to just go ahead and do season 7. But also, I think you'll be able to get into Rebels easier if Clone Wars has finished, and you're not like, no, damn it, I want to see how that other show ends, because that's exactly the situation that so many of us were in with Rebels, where we were really pissed off that Clone Wars didn't finish, because this is where it ended for us. For 6 years, we were without a conclusion. So I think it'll be better for your guys' enjoyment of Rebels if we go ahead and just, go to the end of Clone Wars.
I think that's probably what we'll do then. We'll just we'll finish the Clone Wars as sort of this series, then we'll move on to Rebels, and then we'll eventually get to Bad Batch. And maybe by the time the second season of Bad Batch comes out, we'll be all caught up.
Yeah, the only thing, the only issue like I actually have with that is because season 7 of Clone Wars so brilliantly sets the stage for Bad Batch.
You can't have it all, my man.
Yeah, I know something's.
So the question becomes season 7 before or after.
No, it's got to be. I have to let you guys finish Clone Wars. It's like just the way that this season ends, and it's like, no, we've just got to go on and finish it up, and plus I cannot wait for you guys to watch the finale of Clone Wars.
Right.
So
spoiler warning, I've watched 2 episodes already, so
yeah,
I know what I'm doing anyway.
I probably would have started season 7 today if I didn't have to run a game of D&D before live streaming. So that's what I did instead. Shout out to Ruby Team. They played today.
Yeah, so anyway, so we'll finish up Clone Wars, do Rebels, and then we'll get to Bad Batch.
I think that's fine. I just wanted to know where we put in season 7. I figured Rebels would be next, but is it, because I don't think you need to see Rebels to appreciate season 7 of the Clone Wars.
No, there's just a couple like winks to some things in Rebels, but nothing that I actually think you guys will probably get to enjoy some of the sort of the plot turns of season 7 of Clone Wars a bit more, especially the finale, if you don't see Rebels first. So there's actually pluses and minuses.
It is what it is. I think but the consensus is watch season 7, finish the Clone Wars, then do Rebels, then do the Bad Batch. And I'll probably maybe do a little bit of Bad Batch, specific rewatch before getting to that series,
Yeah, well, all I can say is there's stuff in all of those season 7 episodes that will set up things in Bad Batch. So
maybe I'll just rewatch season 7.
Yeah.
Before when the Bad Batch rolls around again.
That's the way to do it. But we'll get to that. We decided
we're talking about season 6.
Yeah.
Season 6. How about that?
Which is great. And I don't know why people badmouth season 6. They need to be flogged.
Because it's short and it left on a cliffhanger for 6 years. That's why.
Yeah.
Because it didn't finish what it started. There's no Darth Maul.
But coming at it fresh.
Which, by the way, did you read the comics?
I did not. I did not have the time.
Oh, we were going to talk about Son
You can
of
talk
Death
about it, John. I'm sorry, but I just, I did not manage my time the best, and I'm planning a convention. I'm the dungeon master in 2 different D&D games and playing a 3rd one. I work a full-time job. I got a YouTube channel, and I had to watch all of the Clone Wars this week. So
okay, but here's the thing.
Time management.
You need to read that before you start season 7.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. I will do my best to get that read before season 7.
And I think Nessie, I know you at least started reading. Did you finish it?
I read 3 out of 4. I'm 3/4 of the way finished.
Okay, then I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end of the arc because.
Yeah, sorry, John. I probably wouldn't care and still read it anyway, but I
will say that it's basically the arc is, it is Maul escaping from Sidious and forming up, waging war with his, underworld, the Shadow Collective, and waging war with Mother Talzin against Sidious and Dooku. And it is very much the culmination of the Mother Talzin plot
from last season.
Yeah. And so
like that third factor, you know, there's the Jedi and the Sith, and then there's these off-brand Sith.
Yeah.
to kind of, you know, they've got their own plots and plans going. So
yeah, I will say I do find it a bit of a shame that arc was never animated, and that we don't get to see, yet. There's hope. There's always hope for the future. We never thought we'd get season 7 of Clone Wars, so maybe they'll go back and do a couple arcs that we missed. But I will say, I think it's a lot of development for Maul, and just it sets up, you know, what the forces he's able to gather around him, and he's left in a bit of another precarious situation by the end of the arc, but we'll see where he picks himself up next season. But yeah, I won't go into too much more than that. I will just say definitely read it, because it's a pretty important arc for his story. Otherwise, you have basically a big blank spot in the middle of, you know, his season 5 arc, and when he pops up again in season 7, and some characters are introduced who will appear in season 7.
I got you. I'm gonna read it.
Okay, cool.
I just didn't do it. I didn't even remember I was supposed to do it until you mentioned it yesterday, and I'm like, oh crap! I haven't even finished watching the show yet.
Yeah,
as I told people on our Zoom earlier, I took 2 naps yesterday. 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
You was a tired.
Well, I was extremely lazy. I don't know how tired I was, but I was just like, this day I am. Yeah.
There's another story that we unfortunately never got on screen, which I haven't read myself yet. I keep wanting to read it. So I'll be in the same boat as you guys, as the novel Dark Disciple, which continues Asajj Ventress's story, which we otherwise don't get in the Clone Wars. So I've kind of been holding on to that, because it's the one piece of, you know, official Clone Wars storytelling that I haven't read yet. So it's like I always have just one last thing, but I'll probably fit that in between, you know, when we, you know, today and when we do season 7. But yeah, anyway, we're talking a lot about stuff that wasn't in season 6. Let's talk about.
So the 5 episode with the chip and all of that, which, you know, the first arc of the series, with Tup going crazy and killing one of the twins. Don't ask me their names. They're, you know. Tar something, I don't know, but yeah.
I think one of them is Master Tipley.
Tipley and Tiplar or something like that. Tiplar.
Tip. I'm looking it up now. Yeah, Master Tipley and Master Tiplar. Yeah, that's creepy. The good soldiers follow orders.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. As he's like disintegrating, you know, you just break it down.
But the thing is, for those of us who have, like, the prequels are never going to be my favorites, but I have really come to appreciate them. You know, like, I'm going to be honest, I'm never going to like Jar Jar. Probably would have liked him a lot better if he was, in fact, Darth Jar Jar. I think that would have been a great twist. But there's still plenty in those films to really enjoy.
And well, for me, first of all, I said this on our.
I just want to complete my thought with the Order 66 thing. It's looming. We know it's looming.
Yeah.
And for that in that moment when he runs up and he's like, "Kill the Jedi, a good soldier follows orders." Exactly, like it's bone chilling, and it's
Yes.
because we know what's coming, and you just get that, like the hair on the back of your neck stands up,
Yeah.
and you go, wait a minute, this is this is like the first shade of that we're seeing, and they make an entire 4-episode arc out of it.
Yeah, I just remember seeing this for the first time, like, wow, we're really getting into it. They're really exploring the stuff in detail,
Yeah.
and especially now because of stuff that comes later in Star Wars storytelling. Like I found this arc even more interesting. I can't go on about like how much I absolutely hate. What's the Kaminoan's name? I always get the three of them mixed up.
I don't know, the lady doctor.
The doctor. Like, because, and they're kind of ambiguous on exactly what she knows, because Dooku says, the Jedi must not discover the real purpose for Order 66, but I think it's implied that he's actually still lying to her.
Is it one of these people, Nala Singh or
Nala Singh? And I think that he's told her that it's for for rogue Jedi.
Right.
And so even she thinks she's keeping a secret, and she thinks she knows the whole truth, but actually no, of course she doesn't. There's just lies within lies going here, but she.
I just want to point out this name I do recognize, but that's sort of like the Kaminoan prime minister or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, there's Lama Su, there's Tanway, and Nala Singh, and but yeah, there's so much, like there's some great stuff, not just in this show, but in future Star Wars storytelling regarding the Kaminoans. It's like freaking Game of Thrones up in there. It's sort of got in terms of like who knows what and who's keeping
and people backstabbing other people.
Yeah, it's some really good stuff.
What was interesting was like how early in the development process they actually put those biochips in the
they're like fetal.
Like they were like stage 2, which is like just starting to have neural functions. So pretty much at the inception of their neural function, they're giving this chip, inhibitor chip or whatever, supposed to be.
It's supposed to make them less aggressive, which I'm just like, why would you want your soldiers to be less aggressive? Maybe you want them to be more sort of like,
maybe
it's controllable, but
in comparison to first of all, let's remind ourselves that that's complete and utter bullshit. But second of all, I guess the thing is in comparison to Jango Fett, who was so unruly.
Right.
That's
right. Yeah, that was specifically brought up.
We did get a Jango Fett name drop.
And we do know that there's one unaltered clone out there, so we know what the alteration was. He's got all the aggression.
yeah, and he let it out. Go watch The Mandalorian if you haven't, season 2, and you'll know what we're talking about. But anyway, we're still trying to. I'm still trying to talk about the Clone Wars. I know we're doing a really bad job of it.
Well, I think what you less aggressive, if to prevent civilian population from being harmed. If you might have bad things happen in wartime.
Right. Here's the thing. In D&D terms, Jango Fett is not lawful neutral. He's probably true neutral or possibly even chaotic neutral. I'd have to know more about his story to make a better call. But what they want is lawful neutral clones. They want clones that will obey orders, do what they're told, and not worry about the moral complexities of what they've been ordered to do. Now, some of our favorite clones sort of break that archetype. Rex is lawful good, I would argue. Rex takes orders and does what he can, but he has morality in mind all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
and well, it's even brought up where the I think it's Lama Su says that the Jedi have inspired, sort of individuality and morality and certain behavior in
Right.
the clones.
Yeah.
So that's why we get, which flies in the face of, when Order 66 happens, and at the flip of a switch, all that goes away. And, and we're
They did specifically say the Skywalker, the ones that have been hanging around with Commander Skywalker, right? Or General Skywalker.
No, it was
just all the Jedi.
The Jedi, yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was the Jedi in general. And,
I will say, as far as drifting off topic, the thing is, so much of, this season sort of taps into like other areas of Star
Right.
Wars. So it's like you can't help but be all over the map.
Star Wars is a huge tapestry of storytelling. We're going to have to reference other things because it's not a story that's occurring in a vacuum.
Of space. Yeah.
Right.
There's history. And everything ties together. One domino leads to another.
Oh, don't say Domino. My heart's gonna
yeah.
break.
Sorry.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Domino Squad.
Yeah.
Five was a member of Domino Squad, wasn't he?
Wasn't he the last member?
Was he the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Echo went.
Yeah,
prior.
there's just such tragedy when and he says the same thing to Rex that Tup says to him, the mission, the nightmares, they're finally over, and it just, oh God, and the music swells. It just broke my heart watching that.
Yeah, and knowing that the clones dream and that their dreams are filled with nightmares is just.
Yes. And I guess it didn't necessarily strike me when he first said it, but like on retrospect, it's this idea that he can say that he can talk to Rex about the nightmares as though Rex
understands.
How could you not understand what I'm talking about? He's like, hey, you know how you breathe? I breathe too. This is how he's talking about having those nightmares.
Yeah. And I don't think this is the first time that they've been mentioned. I think they were mentioned during the one of the early clone arcs.
It's been too long since I've watched those early seasons. I don't remember.
But I think it was I want to say it was with Domino Squad. But they were just talking about the dreams, or it could have been the weird thing in their head, the little worm. But yeah, it's not the first time that it's mentioned.
They're probably having nightmares about killing Jedi, people they admire and trust.
Yeah. Knowing that, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Yeah. I mean, if the mission is to exterminate the Jedi.
Right. But I also really appreciate the lengths to which the show went to give Fives. I mean, ultimately he fails in his mission, ultimately what he's trying to do does not come to pass.
He tells people that should believe him. He does everything in his power. That's just sad.
But he's up against Anakin, who is never going to see through. He's never going to believe anything about the Chancellor. There's this sort of plausible deniability story about a about losing his mind from the having his implant removed. It's so tragic for a character who's come so far.
It's funny because the first time I watched this episode, I actually thought it's funny how sometimes you interject your own feelings into the characters sometimes, and that's a mistake, because I remember the first time that I watched the fourth episode of that arc, and Palpatine is going on about this. I could have sworn that like maybe Yoda and maybe Mace were suspicious about this, but if you actually watch it, they're not. They accept it because at this point they have no reason to suspect that the Chancellor is is evil or anything. Yoda has a kind of look of sadness or worry, but that's in response to when the Chancellor says, we're coming closer and closer to winning the war, and I think Yoda doesn't actually believe that to be the case, and that's why. But I remember it's funny because I very much like interjected my own suspicions, or not suspicions, just outright knowing what the Chancellor's up to into that moment. But it's the sad part of it that they at that point don't suspect anything amiss with that. They completely take his word at that, and that shuts the case on that. So it's just, oh God, it's so frustrating. But I think that's a sign of how great the storytelling is, that I want to kind of yell at the screen and be like, no, don't believe him.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's heartbreaking because, Fives hasn't been a major character, but he's been a supporting character that's been around for a while and has gone through a lot. He's had a whole arc going from, Domino Squad, who could barely pass their graduation from clone school, to being an army trooper, to being, basically special forces.
Yeah. And then watching his fellow team members, one by one.
One by one.
One by one. Till he's the last.
It's heartbreaking, but it's still the story we needed, I think.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't succeed, or the movie wouldn't happen the way it did. But it was really great to see one of the clones that we've loved the best, who's probably been most affected by their time with the Jedi. Rex and Cody are big examples as well. But to see the ways in which he is acting because of the influence the Jedi have had on him. He's not one to just follow orders anymore. He wants to get to the bottom of it. He wants to do what is morally correct, which is not what he was programmed for originally.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
And
I really have to say that one of the best things about going through this show again with you guys was really following the through line of all the members of Domino Squad, but especially Fives and Echo and even Tup, who I didn't even realize had shown up in the previous arc in season 4. And so I was able to track that stuff much better this time through and really pay attention to the character arcs of the clones, because let's be honest, first viewing through, when you're going through the show really fast, it can be easy to mix up the clones and forget necessarily who's who. So it was really an emotional journey going through, especially with Fives, because I knew that obviously I knew it was building up to this, and it was just so sad to watch. And like you said, Stephen, for a show that's, I could say that I think that there are times when this show is, you know, a lot of times, especially in the later seasons when the show is much more than a quote unquote show for kids, but it did still air on Cartoon Network. You know, it was, you know, supposed to be at least safe for kids to watch. And
Right.
they grapple with so much that's really heavy in this show.
Yeah, the Fives arc was really tough to watch. Like especially his interactions with Nala Singh, because she kept referring to him by his clone designation number. And every time he would respond, Fives, my name is Fives. You know, he's trying to keep his individuality, you know, himself, you know, during this whole process. And every other conversation between Nala Singh and, I can't remember the Jedi supervisor there with the headscarf, the female Jedi. But every time that they would refer to the clones, they was like their property. But whose property are they? There are the Jedi's property because this is our army. You know, property.
Was that Shakti?
Shakti.
Yeah.
She's the same race. I don't know the race name off the top of my head, but she's the same race as Ahsoka.
So, you know, they're battling back and forth. It's like, you know, being political and trying to one up and get, you know, how two different agencies would, you know, vie for, you know, control of something. But then there's Fives the whole time, like, I'm an individual. I'm a person. This isn't right, you know.
And again, like, it allows, they keep humanizing them so much, the clones, down to making the atrocity they commit with Order 66 not really their fault.
Yeah.
You know, they are biologically engineered to do that.
They have no choice.
Right.
I mean, just, yeah. I get a lot. I feel differently about the clones now than I did before we started this series. I 100%, you know, I really didn't think
I love them. Like, I learned something interesting because, you know, I didn't get spoiled on anything, but I did learn that they sort of retconned Rex into Return of the Jedi. And I was just like, my heart flew. It sang. A great bright radiance glowed from within me when I realized that, you know what, I'm going to find a picture of him. Because it's just awesome. Let's see.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that started off as something the fans pointed out. Like, it was like, could that be Rex? And then they officially ended up doing it. And
wow.
Yeah, it's just.
Let me find a decent picture where you can see him. This is pretty good. Okay. Put it over here on, wait a minute. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Okay, now click that. Now come over here. Yeah. So what do I want? I want it to be an overlay. Yes, I do. So here you go. That's Rex in The Return of the Jedi. And and the thing is, I remember as a kid, I'm like, who's this old man? Like, everybody else is so young. I'm like, who's this old guy? You know.
Hey, I'm down.
Well, I've got room to talk. But, you know, as a child watching Return of the Jedi, he's just, you know, he looked out of place to me. Like, oh, look, an old guy. But, you know, the fact that is canonically, that's Captain Rex, clone trooper. Right. Like, you know what that means? That means he lives for at least another 25 years after the end of the Clone Wars series.
Good on him, man.
and he's still out there kicking butt.
Yeah, I don't
Bringing
mind.
down the empire.
I don't mind you guys knowing that spoiler because I can see the warmth that it brings to your heart. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
I love Rex, man. He's like the two
Oh,
best
yeah.
characters in the Clone Wars are Ahsoka and Rex to me. Which is my biggest complaint about this season is that Rex is barely in it, and Ahsoka's literally only in it for one scene where Yoda sees a vision of her and she's dying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll send you guys a link because I just noticed today, as a matter of fact, that somebody uploaded it back up onto YouTube. There's actually an unfinished. It's called the
Lost episode.
It's a story reel. It's basically there was a 4-episode arc that took place on I can't remember the planet that Obi-Wan goes to on episode 3 to fight General Grievous. I for the life of me I can't remember the name of the planet, but it's he and Anakin go to that planet to investigate a Jedi's death. And basically the story reel is an episode, but it's very, very early animation. Right.
It's like almost animatics.
It's animatics, basically. It's got voiceover, it's got music, it's got all that. I didn't put that on your guys' plate because I thought I should leave that as an option if you guys want to check it out. And plus, I didn't know how to obtain a copy of it for you guys, but now it's up. So I'll send that. The reason why I mention it is because there's a great scene in that arc where Obi-Wan and Anakin have a conversation about Ahsoka and Anakin's feelings about the fact that she's left. And like that's the thing that's missing from this season because it feels like Ahsoka is the unaddressed, element.
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, I was going to say the Togruta in the room.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
and yes, thank you, Matthew. I did see your comment, but Togruta, I there's a lot of races in Star Wars. It's hard to remember them all.
Now that said, the next time you see Ahsoka, it is pretty much going to pick up her story, right? From where it left off.
I've looked ahead at sort of I'm on Disney Plus. I clicked season 7 and I kind of read the one sentence description of each one and you see the thumbnail. So I'm hopeful. I really am.
Yeah. But that was the major thing. I remember when they released season 6, everybody was like, but we don't find out what happened to Ahsoka. It's and then there's a whole conversation to be had about how that led into what we eventually did on Rebels, and perhaps why we got what we did on Rebels, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's for when we talk about Rebels.
Yeah.
Which, hey, I do intend to do,
Oh, yeah.
And I will say it's a lighter show in tone than this because
it also follows one core group of characters.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm going to like a little better.
The thing about, and it's all chronological too.
Okay, that's helpful. Although, I don't mind non-linear storytelling as long as I know that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Plus, we get Grand Admiral Thrawn, so there is that.
I will say that sort of, we'll talk about this more when we get to Rebels, but it's kind of important when we're talking about this season of Clone Wars as well. And the reason why the show is ending is because this was when Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it was Disney. So they wanted a new show that was a bit lighter and not so much on the, Clone Wars was really diving down deep into, war is hell and there's death and, destruction. And they were starting fresh with the first movie out was going to be Force Awakens. They wanted a show that brought back like the classic old trilogy feels, and so it's a very, it's a great show. The show has great storytelling, but it is different, which I think is
that's fine.
Which is why I think that it was met with, Clone Wars fans were like, no, this is not what we want. We want the rest of Clone Wars. And
the thing is, good on Disney in two ways. Like, there's plenty you can complain about with that company, but like they do, they acquired the property. They were like, we're stopping everything. And all that old stuff. Only the movies are canon. Oh, except for Clone Wars. Because we're going to keep these because they were actually worthwhile and good.
And they were like, Lucas was directly involved in Clone
Wars. They were recent additions. And then they said, we're going to rebuild canon with just the films plus the Clone Wars series. Now, they had a different idea of what direction they wanted to go after that, but obviously the love for this show was there enough that and season 6 was still strong enough that at the end of it, people were like, no, we still want it. We still want it. Give it to us 6 years later if you have to, but we still want it.
Yeah.
And I think rightly so. Like, if this was just the end, I would feel unsatisfied. I mean, I would be grateful for what I had, but like the Ahsoka stuff, like, explain to me, where was Rex during Order 66?
Yeah.
Like,
I can't wait to see that. I cannot wait to see that.
And
clutch.
I will say though, I think they did as admirable a job as possible and whether this was in their control or not. I don't know if they had gotten hints that maybe they weren't gonna go for much longer, but like that Yoda arc, the way it ends, like it feels like, okay, we can't actually do the ending we want to do, but let's close out with some real dramatic weight. And then like, especially that final scene, the way it like pans up and fades out, it feels like
a final.
Yeah. So
literally the last shot in the Clone Wars is a flower.
Yeah.
It was for 6 years.
Yeah. Now I can appreciate it much more now. Back then it was like, damn it, no, it's still, because at this time there was talk that the show would go on for like, I think 8 seasons. So like, it felt like there were a lot of lost episodes. And that said, like I said before, I think it works fantastically the way it is now, because the season does feel like it's teeing up, a final run. Yeah. So it works out fine regardless. I feel like we are going to, after we do our mid-roll, like there's a lot to talk about with Yoda, but there we haven't given much attention to the other 2 arcs.
We haven't, and there's technically 3 because one is the Jar Jar arc. But we can pretty well gloss over a lot of that one. But you're right, mid-roll. It's 7:00 Eastern, everyone. You know what that means, time for the mid-roll. We're going to start this mid-roll by saying, patrons, we love you and thank you. Our patrons are awesome. They keep the lights on. They get stuff named after them when I play video games. We love you guys. Our Patreon High Council is, of course, Ridiculous Ed Tollett, our alpha patron. Awesome dude in general. Love you, man. Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, and Sixto Sounds, a.k.a. JP the Axe Grinder. And they are, of course, backed up by the lords and ladies of the realm, Lady Leaf Underhill, Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, and Reflective Rambling. Thanks, guys. We love you. If you want to become a patron and get your own shout-out, links down in the description. Yeah. Next week on this channel, we'll be talking about Loki again. The final episode comes out Wednesday, and I have been loving the show a lot, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. Hopefully, John and Nessie can both be there. Wouldn't be surprised if Nessie can't make it because of work.
I can pretty much guarantee it.
Can I just say that, like, I have no idea what's going to happen in this
I don't either,
episode,
and that's great.
And I love that. I've really been enjoying the show a lot.
Chaos, man. You just got to learn to embrace the chaos.
Yeah, I will say, Leaf makes a good point. Like the video, please, or like it. It helps spread this to other people's eyes. So like and subscribe. I mean, most of the people I see in the chat are probably already subscribed, but hit that thumbs up button.
Yeah. Leave us a comment.
John, Nessie, I know you guys like occasionally do live streams and stuff. Do you have anything on the horizon?
I do. Okay, so hasn't been the best week. Like the people in our Slack know this. I've been having a bit of a hard time, but I do still have a stream on the horizon. I'm just moving a little slower because I don't want to put too much on my plate. But we're going to be back for a stream on Saturday the 24th, and we're going to be covering pretty much one of my absolute favorite films of all time, Amadeus.
I recall when we did your I Know That Nerd, we talked about this film a good little bit because it was one that really got you into cinema in general. Yeah,
it did. And not only that, but classical music, and it sort of shaped my perception of what music was. And I'm going to have one hell of a group of people joining me. First and foremost, this wonderful lady down here, Nessie, is going to be on the stream. Also going to be joined by AK, Miss Alicia Kingston.
Who I believe is in the chat right now.
Yeah.
She was earlier released.
My good friend, Laura, who... she was on the Master and Commander stream that I did, as well as she joined us for Aliens on this channel, Stephen.
Yeah, she did. And she played D&D with me earlier today.
And pending confirmation, she did say she's very interested in doing this, but I haven't gotten the absolute final yes, but I'm very much hoping we're going to be joined by Shakes of Thrones. So this is going to be I think one hell of a panel, and for one of my absolute favorite films of all time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be on Saturday the 24th at 7 p.m.
That's 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right
on. Nessie, do you have something coming up?
Not anything on my own channel. I'm
going
to be joining John next.
Right. Like I get it. It's tough. Like one of the few. I made a real strong commitment to myself when I started this channel that I was going to go every week for at least a year. Well, it's been over 2 years now, but and I have missed a couple of weeks here and there, but I've tried really hard. But I'm not trying. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I get how hard it is. And
I've really discovered, Stephen, that I really like the weeks when I just come on here and I don't have to do any of the work.
Right? It's great, isn't it? There's a reason I like this format as well. Just the, chit chat with friends. Oh, I watched the thing. Now I'll talk about the thing. You want to see my list of notes? Here they are. So, I mean, there's homework for it, but it's tough. I get it. And the thing is, Nessie, you almost have to have notes for the stuff you're talking about because you're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about things that are a lot
I've
more academic. And I guess the same is true with you too, John. Like, again, it's not easy.
I started off with notes, and then I just gave in to your habits, Stephen. I was like, "Oh, the hell with it. We'll just
Of just flying by the seat of your pants."
yeah."
Well, there is that aspect too, which can be fun.
Yeah.
You know.
But
we're here
yeah,
to support you, man. We're here.
So go talk with John about Amadeus on the 24th. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be ridiculous.
Is there anything else anybody wants to throw out off the top of their head?
I'm trying to think if I've forgotten something. I don't think I have.
Here be con. Here be con.
I was about to talk about that. I just wanted to make sure everything else was out of the way first.
Well, that was on the list.
Okay.
Like, I've noticed time has started to really slow down all of a sudden, and I wonder why that could be. Is it because I'm looking forward to a certain event?
Could be. That being said, let's talk about Here Be Con. I'm not going to spend too long talking about it, but if you want to know more about Here Be Con, you can email me at herebecon@gmail.com. That's right. We have our own email for
what?
We will be sending out registration forms soon. There are currently, I think, 19 people who might be attending. Here, I'm going to start making people fill out registration forms starting next week. We're going to have like a month of where people can join or not. Yeah, you're going to need one just because it's going to have all the like contact information and food allergies and whatnot, you know. But yeah, everybody's going to fill out a registration form. Everybody's going to, but the idea is that it's us Here Be Dragons people hanging in an Airbnb for a week, and anybody can come as long as you're fully vaccinated. That's like our only real requirement. Depending on the date, Cedric, it is happening the week. It's in October 16th through 23rd. That's 2 weekends and the Monday through Friday in between. You can come for a part of it. You can come for all of it. Cedric would love to have you come, my man. And the thing is, it'll be easy for you. You don't have to fly anywhere. You live here. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun. If you want to know more, send me an email at herebecon@gmail.com. You can see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. We will be planning a couple of little sort of getaway out of the house things, but a lot of it's just going to be being there, enjoying each other's company, having a drink, we'll say brownies. That's a good way to put it. You know, we'll be having a good time. Karaoke machine probably going to be there. John will be have some film running in the media room at all times. I'm sure of it. Whether he's in there or not, there will be something on.
I don't do anything else. Of course, I'll be in there.
Yeah,
I just watch movies.
You're going to be doing some other things.
Yeah.
But
making popcorn.
So send me an email. I look forward to hearing from you. And it's going to be a lot of people you know from the chat. So yeah, do that. Anything else you want to say about HereBeCon? Something else? We talked about when it was. It's not going to be super cheap. If you're staying with us, it's going to be it's going to be as expensive as any other vacation, but it's going to be with nerdy people who love talking about the same thing you do. I'm going to be there. John's going to be there. Nessie's going to be there. People from the chat that I know are going to be there. Leaf is definitely going to be there. Mom's going to be there. Who else that I've seen in the chat today? Jess is supposed to come. Kelly. Kate, our resident book nerd, Kate. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of folks, great folks from the HBD family that will be there. John will be peer pressured to dance. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. The peer
Yeah,
pressure, for
it
sure.
hasn't happened yet, but
But you've never experienced my peer pressure to dance.
Steven's a great dancer. Just let him lead.
Or what happens when 4 different ladies all ask you to dance at the same time?
you guys are, Stephen, you're already peer pressuring me to do one thing.
Yeah. We'll talk about that
on
later.
this occasion.
But and also, I do owe Leaf an interpretive dance of a scene from A Song of Ice and Fire. So if you want to see that mess, you got to come to HereBeCon, because that's not making its way onto the internet, y'all. That's not making its way onto the internet. All right.
Oh man.
So, shall we shift gears back to the Clone Wars?
Before we move on from that first arc, I just want to throw out some love for AZ3, the droid who helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who helps
droid
Fives.
arcs. AZ3's arc was the best.
Just remembered something else too, and I wanted to bring up. We have a really good friend of the channel named Dan who does his own channel called Voice of Geekdom. He does some really awesome Lord of the Rings, Tolkien videos, really fantastic stuff. And he just started his own Patreon. So I don't want to brag, but I was his second patron, and I was only beat by seconds by the first patron. So I missed out being his alpha patron by less than 60 seconds, I think. And Nessie, you're number 3. You were probably at work when it happened, so you couldn't do it as immediately as I could.
Right.
And
I was on it.
By the way, a video that looks like it's not out quite yet, but we've been talking about it, so hopefully it will be soon. Dan and I had a conversation about the differences between the Lord of the Rings films and the books. I believe he's editing that, so it should be up soon.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah. And I'm seeing a little bit of love for Dan in the chat too. I know this. Kelly works with Dan also on some aspects of his channel. So yeah, Kelly gonna be there at HereBeCon. Wish Dan could be there, but yeah. Anyway, come to HereBeCon and go check out Dan's channel. Love that guy.
Yeah, and wish Aaron M a happy birthday.
And wish Aaron M a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Aaron, and bye, AK.
Bye, AK.
Right.
Gonna have a great week. Gonna ask you back soon. Hey, you want to come talk Loki next week since Nessie won't be here. If you're still here, you can answer. If not, I'll message you later. But yeah, shall we talk Clone Wars?
Sure. Yeah, no, but I was just saying I have a lot of love for AZ3. He's I love that back and forth between him and Fives, where no clone uses the number. I'm Fives. That's a number.
That's not
Right.
the point. I'm Fives, not 5. Fives. There's a difference.
But yeah, and I'll leave it at that because we have a lot of other stuff to cover. Nessie, you were missing Padme last season, and I told you there would be an arc this season for her, which actually technically was supposed to be the previous season, but actually because of what we were just talking about with Anakin and how he behaves in this arc, I actually think it's really well placed here as we move towards the end game.
Yeah. Especially since they're secretly married, there's a little...
I agree, John. It's the perfect time to start showing the widening of that rift.
Yeah.
And really start to dig into the feelings that Padme has. She says it to him, our relationship is founded on lies.
Oh, yeah. But then they go back to Coruscant and make a pair of twins, so...
Well, when the Clovis thing blows up, they both, she kind of has this, oh, you were right moment. And as great as Padme is, she's got her blind spot too, which is Anakin.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think she's as blinded by Palpatine though as he is.
I don't think so either, but like, she's not going to be the first to suspect Palpatine either, because he is Nabooian.
Nabooian?
Well, he's from Naboo also.
But I did really like that look on her face when that arc ends, and Palpatine, like, we haven't even, like, we haven't talked about it, but it's a pretty big thing that Palpatine gets control of the banks.
Of the banks.
Of the money. All the stinking money. Hello. Oh.
Yeah, and I think she, like, you can see the look on her face. She realizes the gravity of that, and yeah, that's what this season really did so well, of like dropping all these pieces in place.
Yeah, it's just
to where it's all coming to a head.
Yeah. So there's no way to stop. No way to stop him. I mean, Palpatine controls the military. He controls the political sphere. He controls the money, the economic sphere. I mean, he's got it all right in the palm of his hand. So just right there, he's got all the reins.
Cedric, I look forward to seeing your art. Sorry, it just flashed up Cedric's.
Oh yeah, I just saw that.
Congratulations. Torg is not a game that I have played much, but I do know somebody who writes for Torg, and apparently I know somebody who arts for Torg as well.
Yay! We've got such talented people in our little corner of the internet.
Yeah.
I do want to say there was a nice little bit in these episodes when Padme and Clovis are talking about something they did together when they were younger senators and working on a cause. I forget exactly what it was, but that actually happens in the book Queen's Shadow. So It was nice to have that reference back to something that they expanded on in the books. It's this really great way where this, the novel's really expanding on some of these characters and stuff. And, and Clovis is someone who, especially when you see his beginnings in that book, he's kind of like, a hapless guy who actually, doesn't really start off as wanting to do any kind of evil. He's just kind of weak-willed, and we really see that in these episodes where he gets himself in a situation where he screws up, and he knows that he screwed up.
Yeah, he's pretty easily manipulated.
Yeah. But sorry, go ahead.
Don't really remember, like, this is the of the three major arcs this season, this is the one that had the least impact on me personally, so like I don't have a strong connection to the memory of it, I guess.
I think it is mostly significant for the Anakin Padme interaction to just plant those seeds that, there is a possessiveness, darkness to their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing that definitely sticks out. I will say, though, I was really struck by, like, how, like, the inevitability almost of Palpatine's political machinations and in this arc, just the way he's, manipulating things to give himself more and more control. Mm-hmm. And so that really struck me more than on past viewings. But yeah, I mean, the centerpiece of these episodes is that scene where Anakin barges in and just starts beating the crap out of Clovis.
Like, he's like, I don't need a lightsaber to kill you.
Wow. Yeah. So,
I will say I'm really cracking up because I just think about the fact that George Lucas designed that damn dress from Attack of the Clones, and it pops up again in these episodes. It's like, Padme, is that the dress you want to be wearing when you're trying to fight off these guys' advances? Because she wears it in the scene where, it's after dinner with Anakin and Attack of the Clones, where she's saying, we can't be together. And then this one where she's trying to make sure that Clovis doesn't fight off. It's like, yeah, the messaging is.
The off the shoulder. Yeah. It's just like, you're really you're not making this easy.
I just thought that was funny because I remember that George Lucas had designed that dress for Attack of the Clones, and it was like, really. But yeah, and then we have the Jar Jar arc, otherwise known as
Then there was a Jar Jar arc. Then there's a Yoda arc, which is awesome. You guys want to talk about the Yoda arc?
I will say, like, about the Jar Jar arc is that it starts to set up this idea that Mother Talzin is and basically searching for to drain life force from beings that are that have are stronger in the force, have a connection to it, and this really does feed directly into something in the Son of Dathomir comic arc. So, and that struck me much more watching the episodes this time around, which makes me all the more hopeful that one day we'll get that arc plugged in here, because it's this really does set that up. But I don't know, I enjoyed it. I know you don't like Jar Jar, Stephen, but I've always had a soft spot for him, and
it's a generational thing. I don't like Jar Jar. I don't hate on anybody who likes Jar Jar, but it's not. I'm probably never going to change my mind. Don't like the character in general. I find him cringy.
I did like the way that Mace kept getting pushed off to the side. It's like, no, we want to deal with Jar Jar. He's our guy.
Yeah, it felt like a heavy-handed attempt to make Jar Jar cool, and I'm like, not buying it.
Not buying it. No. But,
well, if it makes you feel any better, Stephen, this is the last you'll see of Jar Jar in the Clone Wars. So, but he gets his, when the episode reaches its conclusion, he gets, to be a hero, and so he gets to ride off into the sunset, and he's had his moment. So,
yeah, and again, I'm not going to begrudge other people their enjoyment of that, but I literally was watching the leading up moments, and I'm like, please don't give Jar Jar a love interest. And then it's like literally, Jar Jar, my love, let's make out. And I'm just like, I know I am in the minority just based on what the chat said earlier when I brought it up, but I was still just like, no. Mm-mm.
I know what artwork to commission for you now, Stephen.
Yeah, okay.
And it'll go right in the trash.
What is it? Sexy Jar Jar?
Yeah, Jar Jar sexy time.
With Queen Julia?
Like a Jar Jar Dario mashup.
There you go. Okay. Right on that.
Very quickly moving on from this. You're right. It does sort of set up like this idea that, as you say, Mother, what's her name?
Mother Talzin.
Yeah, like the head Night Sister witch. It took me a moment to place her, because I'm like, I recognize her. Is she one of the Night Sisters? She is. She's like the main Night Sister, right? And then they kind of confirmed it later on when they mentioned her name. But I'm like, I like that part of the story isn't gone.
Yeah.
Because the Night Sisters are a really cool addition, like a cool layer to the sort of like Force uses throughout the galaxy.
Yeah.
And I think that this other civilization that they introduced, where with the queen and all the like council of the elders or whatever, I forget what they're called, but I thought that was a really, like, neither Jedi nor Sith. They view the Jedi like kidnappers. They're not warriors at all. I mean, they have guards and stuff, but they're not Force warriors. They're philosophers and spiritualists.
Yeah.
And I really like that this show has taken its opportunity to expand what the Force is and the different ways it can be seen. They've done it a few times.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people often forget. And what I really like is later on in Rebels, they expand on this as well, where the Force is not just for the Jedi, you know,
Right.
saying saying you're strong with the character is strong with the Force doesn't mean that, you know, oh my God, they got to be a Jedi. Then it's a line that Luke says in Last Jedi, where he says, you know, the Force does not belong to the Jedi, you know, and I always really liked that way of looking at it, because it's a much larger picture of things.
I mean, you've got all those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just really glad that they continue that sort of tradition of expanding what the Force is. And I know that Rebels does that to some extent as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that.
And anyway, should we just plunge into
the Yoda arc? Because
the Yoda arc.
It's the best arc of the season, in my opinion.
It is. I mean, they bring back my dude, man.
I know, right?
I knew you were going to be happy.
I love that.
You don't get to see him, but you get to hear your boyfriend's voice.
Well, it's funny. You actually do get to see him, but you don't hear and see him at the same time, because he's in a flash. Yeah, he's in an illusion where you see it, everybody's happy. And actually, it's really kind of unnerving that he doesn't speak in that scene, because you're like, yeah, it's not quite
telling.
right.
It's very telling. Yeah.
It was weird seeing like happy, cheerful Dooku.
It really was. Like, I love that they did that, though. Like, because Yoda really was kind of tested in a lot of different ways. I found certain of the tests to be a little more believable than others. Like his first test, where he's fighting the Shadow Goblin version of himself. I'm just like,
Yoda.
I think Yoda's got a better grip on the beast within than that. But you know, for the purposes of the story, it was fun to watch.
But I mean, that's kind of the whole thing about his arc in the prequel era, is that he actually believes that he's, you know, he thinks more about himself than he maybe should. He's got flaws that he's not aware of in that era. With that, he learns from that, and that's when we get the Yoda of the original films.
Okay, God, that's actually a really solid point you got there, John.
They just took him straight to Dagobah, and just tying him, the first mention of the Dagobah planet, and we're going there with Yoda, and he's going through the same like journey that Luke does when he goes into the Sith tree, and it's just, oh yeah, Yoda's been there before, dude. So that, you know, now Empire just means there's just so much more on, you know, his the time that Luke spends with Yoda.
I mean, didn't it just make you delirious, Nessie, seeing Yoda on Dagobah, hearing the voice of Qui-Gon? It's like,
and R2's there also, like this, you know, R2's been there. Now we know he's been there before, you know. I just love R2 in this. But yes,
R2 throughout the whole thing is just like, are we going home yet? Are we going home yet?
Not yet.
R2, come with me. Now stay here. R2, come with me. Now stay here. I don't actually understand why R2 was there at all, hardly.
No, I mean, somebody's got to stay with the ship, I guess. I don't know. But yeah.
We love R2.
That's why he's there, because he's awesome.
Yeah. exactly.
Yeah.
But
And he's like
and
he's a witness to everything.
I do want to say, but it's very easy for us just to immediately launch into the Yoda stuff. But I really enjoyed the stuff in that first episode when Obi-Wan and Anakin are following the breadcrumbs of Sifo-Dyas and unraveling the stuff, because these are like, it's been sort of a loose thread since Attack of the Clones.
Right.
You know, the whole Sifo-Dyas thing, and so to finally have that followed up. And to have that tied up where Obi-Wan is like, "You're Tyrannus," you know, it's like, it's always those connections that were never quite made. And
and then that knowledge just now at this particular juncture hanging over the Jedi. Their glorious army of the Republic was commissioned by a Sith and
a separatist. Before the separatists happened, they ordered an army before he knew they were going to need
for the war. And see, it was like, I always questioned that in the movies, like, why would this once mentioned Jedi master that, okay, we get no story on, we have no idea who this person is, he just happened to commission an army of clones. And how did he pay for it? They're not doing that for free. Where did the money come from to commission this army to start with? It's just, it never made sense to me in the movies. And now I'm like,
and I always imagined that, that it wasn't actually Sifo-Dyas, that it was probably Dooku, maybe even Sidious himself, but those
giving
connections,
a false name though.
Yeah, exactly. But those connections were never really made. It was just kind of, it was left up to your imagination, and it was really great just seeing that followed up on, and especially the fact that, as we talked about before, now that the Jedi are aware of it, it adds, like I said, that element of a ticking clock of, they have at least some idea of what's been going on, and now trying to, just win this damn thing before.
Yeah, and now, I mean, the Jedi already have like a black eye, so to speak. They're already not being looked upon favorably by a lot of places. And then for if that particular bit of information got out, it would be, devastating for them. So they have to keep a secret,
it's like there is no good option for them.
There's no good option. They've been painted into this corner masterfully. At this point, they're damned if they do or damned if they don't.
Yeah.
And to know that the whole time, it was like, to find out that it was a Sith trap all along. Yeah. No wonder Yoda starts questioning himself.
Yeah, and who wouldn't?
They never questioned Sifo-Dyas doing this. Really. I mean, they just like, oh, it was him. Look what he did. Okay, we accept it.
I will say, in that episode where they're like find the down spacecraft, and you get the troopers and the heavy vehicles and the dust storm, I was like, this is actually really beautifully made. Like, from just purely from a visual standpoint, I was like, you guys have really done a great job with this.
Oh,
making it feel like hostile and claustrophobic, and I really thought they kind of pulled out all the stops with, even if it's just like, they can't do that all the time. You want to see what's happening, but for that atmospheric intro to that episode,
I'm sorry, but man, guys, just wait until you see Bad Batch and the shit.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my god.
Well, we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, but like at the time, like, this was the sort of fulfillment of all those years of hard work with the animation of, look where they had started off and where they ended up quality wise. They really made major strides.
Yeah, they really did. Some of that early animation was kind of rough, even.
There's actually like an episode early on in season 1. It's not one of the first episodes, but it's like a few in that looks really rough. And I noticed it when we were doing that, and when we were covering that season. I was like, ugh, that doesn't look good. But that's just like they were starting up their animation company, and they didn't have they weren't making Pixar movies with that major
budget. From the ground up.
Yeah. So it's just amazing now, because especially you guys will see it when we do season 7, because that's that season 7 is made with the experience of having done both Star Wars Rebels and the other show they did, Star Wars Resistance, which I didn't really care for that much, but they did a lot of really cool stuff animation wise with it. And so
there was a show called Star.
Yeah, it only went for 2 seasons, and it was set in the sequel era. It's not. I don't really recommend.
Okay. I'm not going to care about it.
I'd say once we get through everything else, if you guys want to check it out, feel free. It's not my favorite, but it's still worth taking a look at. But point is, they were really getting a lot of experience in animation, and so to have had all that work that they'd been doing, and then to come back for Clone Wars season 7, it's just amazing what they were able to do with that. And then moving on to Bad Batch, they pushed it even further. So it's just great. You guys are in for a treat with season 7 when you look at it.
Cool. But I'm also in for a treat the next time I rewatch come on, brain. Revenge of the Sith. That's the movie I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I'm going to watch that
after we finish. This whole show has been about adding layers of complexity and context to that story. There's almost a throwaway line that Yoda gives about being in contact with someone in the film,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing. That always, in Revenge of the Sith, it always felt kind of weak, where they have a moment of him in meditation and then opening his eyes, and then at the end of the movie he says to Obi-Wan that he's been contacted by someone from the netherworld of the Force, your old master Qui-Gon. And it just seemed like the whole thing worked around not getting Liam Neeson to actually come in and do some lines or whatever. But what this has done so brilliantly is it's filled that in, so now it feels entirely natural, because we've gotten all the meat of Qui-Gon actually coming into contact with him, and
Yoda sort of going through the motions to learn about it. Can I also say that Darth Bane what an awesome callback, and what an awesome way to they keep him canon, and what a beautiful being a relative term, but the visual representation of that character in the moment where he's ash and embers falling off. I'm that's a visual, my friend.
I have something that's going to make you love it even more, Stephen.
What's that?
Do you know who did the voice?
Sam Witwer?
Mark Hamill.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm going to have to go listen to that again. I mean, Mark Hamill is a fantastic voice actor. He's so great. He's so great at it. You can hear him, but then at the same time, you're he doesn't sound like everything else.
Yeah.
I love Mark Hamill. I had watched all the way through Avatar: The Last Airbender before I realized he was the freaking Fire Lord. Because he's great at what he does,
Which I didn't know that, and now I can make sure I listen for that when I watch the show. But I should just pretty much assume that everything you love, Stephen, will,
is at least tangentially related to Mark Hamill.
Yeah, exactly.
Safe bet.
But yeah, that's like Filoni is always looking to really tie in stuff from like Legends and things that were, Star Wars Legends, the things that were, a part of Star Wars storytelling in all the years before, I mean, this was even technically before the canon had been wiped clean, but George Lucas had never been shy about, dispensing with stuff that had been established, like in books and stuff like that. But Filoni was always looking to, to bring in stuff.
The best, cherry pick, and what a great way to sort of like have your canon going forward. You can be like, oh, these are because I always look stuff that is Legends now. I feel like are legends in the canon. These are stories that have been told about characters
right
within the Star Wars universe that aren't necessarily true.
Right.
But they're legends about the real people of that galaxy. But the new canon gets to cherry pick the best stuff and bring it forward. Like Thrawn, what an amazing character. And then he was not canon after the great axe fell, but then he was made canon again later in something I haven't seen yet, but like I know that he does make a comeback, and that's just what they get to do, but they didn't. So you still get to have your Thrawn without having to kill Chewbacca by crashing a moon into it.
Yeah, but see, and this is a conversation that's like I'm going to have in some form or another at some point. Like,
the canon conversation.
My thoughts on canon, because at the end of the day, for me, it's just like you have great storytelling, you have bad storytelling, and great storytelling is great no matter, whether it's quote unquote canon or not. I still think that, the original Thrawn trilogy is absolutely phenomenal, and it doesn't, but it belongs to a certain era of Star Wars. You read those books and it really brings you back to the time when, the Star Wars movies were the Star Wars trilogy and nothing else. And, and right now we're living through a certain, an era of Star Wars where Lucasfilm has created this whole new tapestry but I'll tell you the thing, something that a lot of people don't want to hear. There's nothing that says that 20 or 30 years down the road, they won't wipe the slate clean again.
That's true. I'm just going to give you my sum up views on canon. Canon is important in as much as what are you holding to, what is the official past, so that we know what the future, when you're writing for the future, you need to know the past. It's not, canon does not mean better or good, it just means official.
Yeah.
And so like if you want to remove the official, what is the official story of Star Wars? Well, it used to be all these extra books and everything. Disney bought the rights, and Disney said, no, the official story is now these movies, this animated show, and that is it. And moving forward, the stories we're going to tell will be based on that history. Now, they had a lot of great stories from Legends that they've been able to pull from, which is great. But again, my overall view is canon is a tool. There you go.
I was about to bring that up.
But like, just because a thing is canon or isn't canon doesn't mean you should or should not like it, enjoy it, love it, whatever. It only matters for the official story going forward.
I just think that because a lot of people because it's no secret that for instance, a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy. Even I like some parts of it more than like other parts of it, but I would definitely say to, people, if somebody came to me and said, I can't stand those movies. I think, they're dreadful or whatever. And I'd tell them, have you ever read the Thrawn trilogy from back in the 90s? And if they said no, I'd say, try those out. You might find that might give you what you're looking for. And it doesn't,
a valid story to read too.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no reason that you can't read it because it's not canon in the current Star Wars canon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like what you like, man.
Yeah. So, I'm not anti-canon. I think it's actually a very useful tool to have, a list of what is and what is not the story. Mm-hmm. But like if you want to read fanfic or write fanfic, do that. Great. It's...
And there's always the what if aspect. You can just look at it from that. What if X, Y, and Z? Let's tell this story.
And I will say,
doesn't have to be canon, but it can be,
but but then there are two sides of that, because as much as I'm a proponent of, don't place importance of, what's canon over how good something is. But at the same time, I would say that, the stuff they've been doing with canon has been really fun as a Star Wars fan, because I really like, the way, different parts of media in Star Wars now are tying together. I like to be able to read the books and have that, expand upon something that was in one of the films or in the TV show.
I think this is a worthy conversation to have about canon, and perhaps much, much deeper. But
maybe we should save that.
I am going to try to steer us back towards season 6 of the Clone Wars as we move into the closing minutes.
I don't remember how we got there.
I don't either, but it's okay.
So, I love the Force Priestesses. Once again, we've got another flavor of Force users in the galaxy. So
these episodes felt very akin to the Mortis arc.
I got that
vibe. Definitely not the same story, but same vibe of learning more about how the Force functions, how the Jedi understand it to function, and how they don't understand its function. It was really great. I loved it.
Midichlorians.
They did say midichlorians, but I gave them a pass because they said which your science describes as midichlorians,
which I felt was definitely Filoni being like, let's keep both camps happy.
Yeah,
just tongue in cheek, midichlorians. Your science,
right.
Because if you're trying to, bring down a mystical force and describe it in terms, you probably missing a few things, but it can't be quantified.
Yeah, my midichlorians are kept in my beard.
Yeah, and yet
I'm wearing the.
Which, by the way, somebody was talking about potentially cutting their hair, and I see it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, I was literally waiting to see if you shaved or not. I made a deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I used the beard trimmer today, so I didn't take all of it off.
Well, I'll just use the hair trimmer then.
No, you can use a hair trimmer.
Okay. If the last conversation we were having was off topic, this is really off topic.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, just one bit that I really loved in one of these episodes was Yoda bouncing,
on gas-filled mushrooms.
Yeah. It just really felt like, that's the OT Yoda that we know.
Right.
Who's in the middle of all this is just going to have some fun. There's no other way for him to get across, really, but he looked like he was enjoying himself.
Getting some mixed signals from the chat. Jess, not a fan. Kelly, fan. But Cedric says, let's talk about how they broke Force Ghost. It's canon now, and it conflicts with the older movies. I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
No, I don't see that it.
I mean, I guess there are some interpretations because how would Anakin have learned it? You know,
right? Maybe.
At what point along the way did Obi-Wan learn it?
Well, we know where Obi-Wan learned it.
Yeah, Obi-Wan learns it from Qui-Gon. That's established at the end of Revenge of the Sith when Yoda says that, that he'll teach Obi-Wan how to reach out to Qui-Gon.
Okay, fair enough. I've forgotten that was a line in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
I know there's some stuff in the older novels that talks about the nature of the Force Ghost, but I don't think that it directly contradicts anything that's in the films.
Yeah, I mean,
the Anakin Force Ghost is bothersome.
Yeah, it can be. Like, how did Anakin learn to do it? And, you know, this has always been one of my biggest problems. Darth Vader was not redeemed at the end of Return of the Jedi. I know, hot take, but guess what? Doing the right thing once after a lifetime of being a horrific oppressor, like, it does not absolve him of his crimes. He should, you know, he's a bad guy. Darth Vader's a bad guy.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I know the message
killed younglings.
Well,
right.
Not in the, this is the thing. This is why I always talk about, like, eras of Star Wars storytelling and different phases. Yes, right now, you know, with, you know, over the past 20 years, or it's 20 years, 20 years with the prequels, that has become canon. But in the original Star Wars trilogy, that was not a thing.
That's true, but he's still like, he's Heinrich Himmler to, you know, Palpatine's Hitler. And I'm sorry, killing Hitler would not have absolved Himmler from all of his crimes.
But this is also, like, I know what Lucas was going for, the idea that it's never too late to atone for your sins, and the audience he was making this for was kids by his own admission. So, I mean, I get it, and it becomes harder to swallow with all the stuff that we've learned about what Anakin did, you know, through the prequels. But I always look at it as, you know, when the original films were made, the prequels were not a thing, you know, and specifically not Anakin cold-bloodedly, you know, killing a bunch of younglings.
I will say, as Qui-Gon explained it in those episodes, he's basically figured out a way to retain his individuality while still being part of the cosmic force.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Got a pop up on my computer and it distracted me for a second. How dare you, sir? How dare you? I'm busy.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no getting away from it. It's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, the stuff that they chose, or that Lucas chose to show Anakin doing. It kind of makes the redemption thing that much harder to swallow.
Yeah.
And the fact
it was done. We know it was done. And whether it was by Anakin's hand or by his order, it was still done.
Yeah, the thing is, Vader is pretty well established as a bad dude in the films themselves. And I can't understand the sort of like, anybody can change. And that's a story worth telling. You know, a great redemption arc is one of my favorite types of arc to have in a story.
Now I just need that backstory inside Vader's head the whole time during the OT. You know, like maybe he's just manipulating the whole time. And I don't know. I want to see.
But
to
at
have
any
a
rate,
redemption, you need to have an arc.
I do find myself, ooh, here we go, redeemed in the eyes of the Force. That might be true, actually, because in that moment, he did return balance to the Force. He did sort of like achieve his chosen one destiny when he killed the Emperor, because at that point, the Jedi and the Sith are both gone, which was, they were both creating huge imbalance by their simply by their existence. Jedi by refusing to acknowledge the even the name the dark side was given to it by the Jedi. Oh, that's all, anger and aggression and like. Granted, these are not the things that we want to like fill our daily lives with, but I am a person. I'm a pacifist that can argue for violence in the right set of circumstances. You got to fight. You got to punch a Nazi in the face, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Whether you're, I'm a pacifist, but I still punch a Nazi in the face.
I do have to say, I only say this because we're starting to run short on time. We once again veered off course away from.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Is there more you guys wanted to say on the Yoda arc?
Just that I thought it was really well done and trippy and weird, and like I appreciated it for its thematics, for its visuals, and yeah, I don't know there's really much else to say on my end.
You didn't mention it earlier. It's the only time we get to see Ahsoka in these episodes as part of Yoda's vision, which, it tugged at my heartstrings. I'm like, oh, Ahsoka, I miss you. And my memory just goes back to when that was all we were getting, post her walking away. But I also found it really unnerving the fact that we see the younglings from the season 5 arc. Because like you talked about this when we were talking about that episode, those episodes, Nessie, that like just seeing, the characters of certain younglings expanded upon, knowing what was lying ahead. And I had forgotten that we actually get a couple of them in this episode, and that, and the one girl is one guiding Yoda through these visions, and it's just like, oh God, that is what awaits them, and that's what's going to happen to them.
Yeah,
it's just
the younglings are like the worst part of the whole story, I think. Just right down to the little bitty babies in their little bitty cribs. Unless they, all but one. He's here somewhere. I've got him somewhere.
You got a little baby orc down there somewhere.
I got a little baby Grogu around here somewhere.
Grogu is not an orc.
Said a baby Grogu.
They're space goblins. Look at those. Yeah. They're green. They got those ears. They're small. Those are space goblins.
Well, Cedric, we're not going to talk about that. Okay, we're just not.
But it's canon. Anyway.
That's like the only time, like,
it or not, it's
like the only time I'm like, no. But yeah, that's yet another discussion that we can have at another time.
We can do a Palpatine only episode.
Goblins and orcs are the same to Tolkien, but not to us D&D nerds. Sorry.
And then, I want to mention again that sequence where we get to see, as if the war had never happened, and and for a moment it seems
he's see-through.
He's going to get him in the right angle.
Because he's green against your green screen.
Yeah, he's green against the green screen, but he's still huggable. He's still
little Grogu.
Life size.
Yeah.
So we know one youngling escapes.
Yeah, probably. And
Well, no, he definitely did.
He did. He
Um,
snuck out inside R2.
I'm giving this thumbs up directly to you, Sean. Unnecessarily pedantic. Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess Grogu isn't technically a youngling, given how old he is.
He was a youngling then.
Was he?
Yeah.
Isn't he like 50?
He's 50, like, later.
Okay, but this is not that long after. I believe, is it 9 years after ABY? Is that when the Mandalorian?
Yeah,
is
but
set?
there's
and then there's 19 years before is when Order 66 happens. It's 19 ABY, and then the Mandalorian is 9 BBY. So it's less than 30 years. So he was definitely alive.
He was alive, yeah, and such a slowly maturing species, long-lived species is going to have a long youngling phase.
He's the same age as Anakin. So.
Yeah. Weirdly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to do.
Come with me, little one. I'm old enough to be your dad.
But no, I really enjoyed getting that glimpse of what it might have been like without a war. Even though it was slightly creepy because we're not used to seeing Dooku like that. I did like the image of him, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon all standing there together.
All together.
Just trading stories about that time they tore ears off of a Gundark or something.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, but especially after Nessie, after reading Master and Apprentice, it's like, no, even when Dooku hadn't officially turned yet, he was already going down that dark path. So you probably wouldn't have had that scene,
No, I mean, he could have been there. I mean, he would still have been.
Turn it around. It's never too late.
He was standoffish as it was a little bit, so just seemed reserved, not mustache twirling evil or anything, just hanging out with his bros.
That is really kind of the way they portrayed him in Clone Wars. I love it, but he is totally a mustache twirling villain.
Sith kind of are that.
Yeah.
How about that weird scene with Sidious and Dooku while they're like conjuring the Force?
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about like the big, metaphysical dream showdown, where we see a lot of parallels with Revenge of the Sith, and with this all of a sudden where Yoda's with Anakin and the clones, and and they're on their way to capture Sidious and Dooku, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the way we actually wish it would have gone down. And then it has Anakin beheading Dooku, just like he ends up doing it.
Revenge of the Sith. And he's like, no, because he knows that'll take him down to the dark side.
Yep.
This is the point where Yoda, finally sees who he's dealing with. So it builds up to Revenge of the Sith, where that's why he's able to march into Palpatine's office and say, Darth Sidious. Yeah.
Because he knows.
And just, it's so creepy when Sidious says, just let him die and you can stop me from all that I will do. And it's just like,
which by to the beheading of Dooku in the same way it's going to actually happen.
I want to say hats off to Tim Curry for doing a really creepy, take on Palpatine and Sidious throughout this season, because he took over after Ian Abercrombie passed away, and he did it. It was different, but he did really good, and it's always great to hear Tim Curry playing evil.
Oh yes, that's
He's good at it.
That's his vibe. He nailed it.
Yeah,
he nailed it.
Although let's all agree that his best work was as a pansexual alien, but like Tim Curry's great in everything he does.
Yeah. I've never not been happy with a Tim Curry film.
But I love that once again, paralleling that their fight in Revenge of the Sith, Yoda and Sidious, and that moment where they fall down and Yoda's clawing to get the mask off to see who it is, and until eventually it's just an empty cloak. And it's there's just really great stuff in that episode, and it's so funny how my perspective on it has changed, because it was downright infuriating back when there was nothing more of Clone Wars, and now it feels
amazing what just feeling like there's more to the story still can do to how you see it.
Yeah. And so now it feels brilliant.
Even that was playing into Yoda's journey to be seen as worthy of this knowledge, because it was, he went into this, he asked Qui-Gon, do you know who the Sith is? Can you have answers? He's looking for answers and not the knowledge that he was actually there to seek. And by having, he had to give that up, that's just one more thing that he had to give up on his journey, and acknowledge his imperfections, and his hubris in a way. Like Yoda was kind of, he had a little bit of an ego thing too.
Yeah, maybe he was starting to get to that to that point where, I've got it all figured out.
I need this one answer. It's the thing that was eluding him, was clouding his, his vision. That he wanted that cloud to be lifted so that he could see clearly again, and that cloud was there for a reason. And choosing to save Anakin, that was, that was the test. And think about later years, should I have just let him drop? Maybe I should have just let him drop. But he does say a line in at the end of his arc that really just tugged at my heartstrings, which was, we don't know what the future holds, but there will one day be a new hope. And he dropped the name. He said
there
the name.
is another Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which at this point, does he mean Padme?
Well, he doesn't say that. It's the Force beings who say that to him as he's sort of fading away from them.
But it's there.
Yeah, so he doesn't know exactly what it means, and what he says to Mace and to Obi-Wan is, not sure anyone ever does win a war. I am, and he says a way, nonetheless, a way forward there is for us that remains closed to the Sith. A path to victory, not victory in the Clone Wars, but victory for all time.
Yeah.
And it's such a great, even when I was pissed off that this was the end, that is a really great line to end on. You could, there's worse ways to close out a show. I'm just glad it ended up not being the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Those spirits talking to Yoda reminded me of Blood Raven and the Children of the Forest talking to Bran. Both are old spirits guiding a new generation for the fight to come. I think that's a really astute observation, Miss Man Jones. I like it. And yeah, it's sort of that sort of, it's the metaphysical, spiritual mentor who's trying to unlock the next level in their protege, so to speak. I think you're right to see parallels there. It's a trope that pops up in fantasy storytelling actually quite a lot. I love the reverse, or the way they sort of flip it on its head here, where it's the wisest character we know who is in the position of student in that dynamic.
Which I also have to.
Padawan, my God, I love it.
I really have to say, Nessie, I'm getting a real chuckle now out of the dynamic of Qui-Gon being the one taking Yoda on as a pupil, given their dynamic in Master and Apprentice. I just it's really funny.
Right. But I'm assuming, like, at the end of the day, I mean, Qui-Gon knew that Yoda had the potential if he would just let go of the bullshit, if for lack of a better term. You know, that was his problem with Yoda. It was I mean, they saw the Force, I think, with enough of similarities that they could work together and commune with one another. But Yoda just being so tied in with the political machinations of what was going on in his position in the council, it was kind of hindering his growth, or him able to be open to like something new and different, you know, a different way of looking at things, when he has to be like, hey, I've got to be the voice of the council and this is how we do things. So being freed from that burden is what I think allows him to grow to be the Yoda that we know and love, the wise Master Yoda. And this is just the first step in that, his further arc. So having Qui-Gon basically take him by the hand and lead him into the frontier, you know, we're going to go out here. You got to like let go of some things. Don't be worried about who the Sith Lord is. That doesn't matter. That's not what's important right now. What's important is being able to, you're learning this new thing. Keep your mind focused on where you are and what you are doing. You know? Right. Be mindful of the living force, Yoda. You know, I can just listen to these, you know, Qui-Gon-isms coming out, and then later hearing those same things come out of Yoda's voice. You know, when Luke is having his training on Dagobah, to hear those same things come out, it's like, vindication.
It's so beautiful because, you know, Nessie, both you and I are such huge fans of Qui-Gon. And like, if I had to, you know, pin down exactly why I'm as big a fan of the Phantom Menace as I am, it's Liam Neeson. That man was just utterly brilliant, you know, and made such an impact as that character. And so it's really kind of great to see what a legacy that character has. I wanted to ask you guys, because I know we're going to wrap up because we're actually over 2 hours, but like, I want to know, like, before we go into this final run of episodes, like, I think it's safe to say, you know, you guys have gone on a journey with this show, you know, like how, when we started off, how you maybe viewed it to, you know, how you see it right now. So I'm just like curious, like, what are your feelings having gone, you know, through this show and preparing to get to the end? Like, how are you guys feeling about
it? I'm really happy that they've added so much more texture to the things I already loved about Star Wars. That's my short answer. Is that I'm really glad I did it because it's an additional layer. It's another dimension. Everything was 2D. Now it's 3D, you know? Yeah.
Like you said, John, now it's more of it's a tapestry. there's bright colors and gold and beautiful, background scenery that frames, the main action that we see in the movies. Now there's so much more to it. Just having brought the clones to life, having given them names and personalities and backstories and making us love them. It just adds such a layer that wasn't there before. And I'm glad that I watched this series, and I feel like I've just had so much more depth to my understanding. That I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we went on this journey together.
Now you guys can see why when we did a watch party a long while back now in the Slack of Attack of the Clones, and when there's that shot when the clones descend into the arena, both Mary and I were like, ladies and gentlemen, the Grand Army of the Republic. And, I think you guys can easily see now, like, why we love the clones so much. This show just did.
It changes the way you see them for sure.
It really does. And
yes.
I mean, I will say Ahsoka is my favorite character from this show, but they've really changed the way I see the clones. Like forever. I will never look at Clone Trooper the same way again.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Because I'll always wonder, was this someone that we knew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, final thoughts.
Can't wait to do season 7 with you guys.
The thing is, like, I'm so glad to have, I'm glad to have gone through the entire show with you guys, but like watching this season was a very different experience for me now that I know there's a season 7, that I know the story is wrapped up, and I really got to appreciate the textures of this season's storytelling more than I think I did in the past, because it's not a bunch of like, oh no, this is the last bit they got to do. This is gearing up for the finale, and there's so much great stuff. So yeah, I've had so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that, they didn't know that there was going to be a future. So when they created this last season, they got across so many questions, and things were like tied up and answered. They did a really, really good job giving us a lot of information in a shortened season. So hats off to them for that. They got the main things across that absolutely needed to be conveyed. The inhibitor chips and how Yoda learned how to be a Force ghost. These were key pieces of knowledge that, needed to be just, gotten out there.
I think Steven wants to wrap things up.
I need to wrap up. I've got to go pee. I drank this whole thing of coffee. I got to go pee. I want a cigarette. John, hang out. I need to talk to you about a couple of things. But yeah, y'all, thanks everyone for coming. This was a great episode, or a great season of Star Wars entertainment. We will be doing season 7 very soon. Don't have it on the schedule yet, but it'll probably be like a month or so. Come back next week for Loki. John's got an Amadeus conversation coming up in 2 weeks. We'll make sure to plug that again next weekend. Yep. But next weekend, we're going to be discussing the back half of Loki. Not sure what we're doing after that, but I've got a few things kind of like knocking around, so we'll see what's what. Yeah, I think that's it, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I believe Alicia Kingston has agreed to be a guest for next week's Loki Jam.
Excellent.
So
that'll be excellent.
If we can't have Nessie, we'll just suffer through having AK as a guest.
Well, I mean,
which by the way, if
I can't
if any of you guys didn't catch my stream with AK, Dan Voice of Utem, and Danny McKay on Star Trek First Contact. Go back, watch that. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Bless you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Bless you.
I did mute. Oof, but yeah, that was a couple good, powerful sneezes. Probably got some more in there. But yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. We love you guys. John, Nessie, great conversation as always. People in the chat, you're the reason we continue to do this, because otherwise we'd just be on a three-way phone call. But yeah, thanks everyone. And we'll see you next week for Loki Talk. Until then, peace and be excellent to each other.